Welcome to a new appointment with CG Peels by JangaFX. Today I want to start with a series of tutorials and a series of more technical videos. So we will proceed in parallel with the theoretical videos to which we are working. Today, however, chapter 1 will also be released, so the ebook. The next video, the second video we worked on, is called Introductory Pills, which talks about more theoretical aspects. Why? We had the pleasure of installing the alpha version of GeoGen, one of his software developed by the same company that developed EmberGen, so you would know that EmberGen deals with the realization of pyrotechnic fluid dynamic simulations. So fire, flames, explosions, clouds, and whatever else. GeoGen is a software they were working on which deals with the creation and design of lands, territories, and natural environments. It's an alpha version, so keep in mind we're really at the beginning, so not all functions are implemented by themselves. There definitely will be bugs, there will be problems, things will change, but it's interesting because they have released an alpha version. Freely downloadable. We had the pleasure of downloading and installing it to start understanding a bit how it works and understand what kind of work. The team boys are doing their tasks. They acquired a long time ago, several months ago, another company that was developing the software. They acquired the software and then they worked on it. So he brought everything that was done on EmberGen on an interface and functionality level. This software, so let's try to... We didn't follow any tutorials, we didn't follow any manuals, also because currently it is not present, so we basically installed and launched and we started playing around with the software. So these are our first impressions, which are definitely positive. Let's analyze together. Moving on to the interface, as you can see, it's currently open and basically you can see more or less how it operates, like EmberGen. So just open the interface itself. You have projects, you have news, updates. In fact, you can also find related information to access the presets, create a new project or open a new project. You need to navigate the menu. Then if we go to the preset section, you'll see that there are definitely already a series of active situations. They are very useful because you can, through these gifts, start to understand how the software works. These are scenes prepared by the development team, and they show some of the features. As you can see, it also deals with planetary generation, so it can still create entire planets, and this is a very interesting aspect. You can open a preset or you can aim to create a new scene. The interface is completely in EmberGen style. So you see the node view, you have here the parameter section, you have the viewport. There are already some settings that we have changed because we played around a little bit. You see the interface is very fast because it's all GPU based. So it's extremely fast. As you can see, I can also change the light position with the right mouse button and then I can move the pointer anyway. A very interesting aspect. Menus very similar to those we have render engines, we have the remarcher, we have the light map, and we have the path tracer. This is the first time we are starting to see the path tracer, which will also be present in LiquidGen, the other software they are developing, that it is then fluid dynamics as far as its liquids are concerned. So you see we can essentially activate, and this is a homegrown engine. So you see there's the typical effect of progressive refinement with grain. Let's return to the marking quality. So you see we start from a very low setting, but in terms of rendering now is more or less the same until we reach the ultra level. Let's set it for the moment on high level. The possibility of having or not having interesting statistics, especially about the RAM used on the GPU on the video card, because obviously if you saturate the GPU, the software will tend to become much slower and could potentially block. The car here, we have the views, so the cameras. Interesting, here we have some quality settings. So the first one is essentially related to the geometric model. So in the section you see below is the scale of the environment at this moment is practically 1 kilometer per side. You can reach up to 8 kilometers per. It's obvious that the various modifiers that are applied will be scaled. So those mountains that were large before, if I go to 8 kilometer, will obviously be scaled. Smallish. But on the other hand, we may return to a kilometer per kilometer. On the other hand, you also have precision at this moment. A pixel is a meter as far as the quality of the generated mesh is concerned. Obviously, I can go even higher, so now a pixel is practically 2 meters. But I can also start to gradually refine, for example, go down 25 centimeters per pixel. You see that the increase in level of detail is substantial. We are obviously occupying more RAM. In fact, we have already arrived at 5 gigabytes. However, the level of detail is extremely high. Obviously, it has become slower in use. You see that even posting the light has become a somewhat slower situation. We return to the level that allows us to still have interactivity. And so you see that the VRM use is again chosen. On the other side, this is what manages the quality in pixels of the generated texture. So at this moment we are at 1K, so 1000 px, 24 pixels on each side. We can go up to 16K. For the rest, the operation is very similar as we said to EmberGen. Of course, you can modify the interface as you want. Here you have the node graph that currently contains the nodes. Basic regarding the realization of this terrain here. You have the renderer that obviously takes care of the rendering. You have the warps. The warps practically generate disturbances. If you want to see what a single node manages, just click on the output. As you see right now, it is showing us the warp of the node, warp node. Just click on X and it gets deactivated. Same with the hit map. At this moment you only see the hit map. Same thing you see for masks. And the same applies to colorize. So every node can be displayed to analyze what that specific node is doing. So the warps are essentially systems that disturb the surface. The height maps are the height maps that will therefore generate a warp. The presence in the mountains, we have masks that will check where certain things are applied. Filters, effects, colors, and whatever else you have. The colorize that takes care of coloring the ground that has just been applied, and the render takes care of rendering. It's interesting to see that everything works essentially as you see in pure EmberGen style. And everything works obviously with a quite low resolution in real time. So you see I can change the noise in real time. Varying essentially what you can, I then becomes a lot practical, you see, and quick to be able to generate a terrain with this type of management. You see how fast, and then when maybe I am satisfied with the effect could raise the level of precision. So to be able to work in real time on a simpler version, then to be able to move on to the higher one, mode, as you can see in the video. That can be layered between each other, so you can go ahead and create of very, very complex situations. We remember on Perlin that it's quite typical, and you can really play with the parameters in real time. So some of these may not even need explanation, because by varying them you can understand what is happening. The base, so this is essentially an 8 map, so you can go decide. You see how it is. The 8 map comes anyway rotated, scaled. You can decide, you see, to modify it in all ways. This is the relative height of the mountains to the... This is the warp's amplitude. You have the offset, you have many parameters. Right now we don't care. Assess what each individual node does, because it will be something that we can then what to do next, and also the management of the shapes. At this moment, for example, we have created cliffs, so a completely different type of terrain than that. Precedent and you can really work in a very extremely creative way. Now you have charts with presets already create, and you can safely go to manage in real time the chart without any kind of problem. Then you can safely add maybe even other points as done now with the shift key, and you see that you always work in real time. Interesting to also see the colorize. As you can see, it also has the ability to manage the picking of the color. And this is a very interesting feature because you can pick it directly from a reference image. Subtitles and revision like this. Now at this moment here, I don't have a photo with me, but figure out how you can practically select the picker. You are going to select the obstacles. Holding down the mouse button, select it, and you see he captured the colors that were in the line that I drew and created a gradient. This means that you can go pick a picture, a photo of a chosen land. Perform the same picking effect, and obviously it can then be manipulated. The color values are therefore very interesting. All these effects can be masked, and therefore you can assign them to certain areas of the terrain, so on. The renderer is also extremely interesting because it has many options beyond the ones we already know about managements. Light elevation management. You have all the parameters: color, intensity, occlusion. So there are many effects. For example, you can go and section water. We can go and add water inside the scene, and as you see, it has added water basins. We can decide that the water level is higher, so it ends up flooding more or less the entire environment. And all this is tested in real time. You see the opacity, so you also see waves on the water, so wave scaling, the amplitude of the waves. Depending on the presence or absence of waves, the color of the water and the refraction index. There are many features, including for cloudy or maybe clearer water, crystal clear. You have the depth of field, you have the fog. So as you can see, you can also add fog. And the interesting thing about the fog is we have a density, but here too all parameters are highly controllable. We can go to define, you see the scaling, the coverage, the radius, distortion. You see clouds as if they were coming, you see distorted by a color modifier. So you also control parameters for the rendering quality and the constraint on the ground. So you see we've practically anchored it to the ground, and we can also say that we follow the shape of the ground. So you see it's more or less taking up the same shapes of our land. And then of course also with all the parameters completely controllable, we have the ability to add to the general atmosphere. So we added this effect, the planet's atmosphere. So this goes beyond the simple fog. We have this one here, and then all the effects we already know about tone mapping and post-processing that we had inside of in EmberGen. We can go to export the lands, we can go to export the heat maps. Then we will perhaps go step by step on how to you all have the nodes. You see at the beginning, right click with the rate, and there you have them divided by categories, or you can go and view them here, activating the little button that allows us to have all the nodes in order. Video input and output of each node have what we're talking about. So if I maybe go get let's see an CMIP, let's put a different one, a source. In this case we have the same things, but in other cases we might have other icons. We just try to understand. Also, these are all hit maps calculated that sometimes we have different inputs and outputs and are recognizable through reconciliation. Maybe now we have a problem. Think in such a way that it is. This is visible, this kind of management, and obviously things as you want. So yes, a choice. For example, I can go distort this and then add it to the ground. Another thing you can do interesting is take a look for an output, and obviously it will give you a list of only things you can do. So if I tell it, for example, warp shape, at this point I can connect this, and as you can see it's using the shape that I just assigned to it. So in reality, you see the distortion made using this and not that. But if I were to put until the next episode, let's put a blend work. Let's put this, for example. Let's put this, and then we connect this warper here now. It's using both. Okay, so as you see, we have 0% visible, only the first, 100% visible, only the second. At 50%, we are using the two warps together, and you can also go to search it, looking at the oscillators. To animate them, you have masks and more. You can also import models from outside, so it's already quite complete despite being an alpha version. Let's go check quickly if I open a scene made by them to be more or less busy. Obviously, the situation becomes a bit more complex. This is a canyon. You see there are certainly many more nodes. There are masks that are interacting of them to create certain effects. Let's go see. This is the solid warp. This is the light map. This mask still here does nothing. Start to see various outputs here. For example, they simply selected these areas here. And as you see, these different masks identify different areas which allow us to create sediments. For example, here with this mask, they were only able to work in those points there. We can go to insert, maybe stones, pebbles, and so on. And it's definitely a very advanced system. I mean, you see that you can really do so many things, and I reiterate, even being an alpha version, it seems to us quite ready to be used in production, always with due caution, because you know that being alpha software, it could have some problems. Let's see how the quality increases. We can get closer, and the lighting is this type, and we see here the mesh, how it changes. You see how low it is. If I put that every pixel is raised to 8 meters, 4 meters. 2 meters obviously takes a bit longer to prepare the mesh 1 meter. You see how detailed it's becoming, and you also see how much memory it's occupying. Now we're at 16 gigs out of 24, which is the GPIO I'm using because it's a 3090. But in terms of detail, it is very high. Obviously here it would already lose quality because we are very close. Let's see if I can also improve the color texture. Of course, this would take up some memory. In fact, we are at 16.5 gigs. But this also needs to be more defined. You see that from a distance anyway. The mesh has a great quality level. Obviously, it always depends on where you are and what it's for. What you are creating, so I wouldn't drag on too much, meaning this was essentially a video to understand. How does it manage? Let's see if we also have a planet just to show you. Well, this for instance is a whole planet. We can go ahead and create it, maybe with a higher quality, and you can peacefully work on the entire planet, defining all the noises that control the planetary structure along with the colors and everything else. Subtitles created by the marginal community. First impression is definitely positive in the sense that all the experience gained is evident in the development of EmberGen. It was brought here on GeoGen, looks like a product already quite solid, even though it's an alpha version. Many other features, many other nodes, many other controls will be implemented, but it's definitely very easy to use. Of course, it needs to be well understood how the masks are used, how the nodes are used, and so on. But it's very simple. Definitely a new competitor on the market that might, for example, give a run for its money. Anyway, it's a great option because it's extremely fast, extremely fast. We haven't tried Gaea 2 yet, which is in the development phase. Release, we are quite close to. Obviously, we need to evaluate the upcoming developments and understand a bit how it will evolve, but it's certainly a a great tool. So it's definitely a software to keep an eye on. In the end, the suite will be ready when the GeoGen, EmberGen and LiquidGen are there. So definitely a fairly complete suite at a contained cost for the creation of several effects. That's all for disappointment, guys.